why I went to an Arab barber, why I went to Asian churches. Excuse me. Pardon my disgust. Pardon my filth. But anyways, the reason people don't understand is to protect myself. Asian churches, they stood up against abortion. Asian churches, they stood up against tattooing or inappropriate piercing. Asian churches stood up against the LGBTQ. Truly. And so even when I had other things that weren't so positive, it was a safe space. I went to a male who was an Arab to cut my hair. Why? Because of what Saudi Arabia and others do. And I told Sam this, who was from Palestine, because of your incredible stance against the LGBTQ, I come to you and allow a man to touch me because I'm not afraid, because in your religion, you'll kill the motherfucker. So I don't have to worry about you try to induce me for inappropriate sexual interactions. So as Christians in that let it go, I went to you because, and we are having this, and I didn't turn away from Christianity, but I just made a lot of Arab friends because of their stance against. And so that's why I hung around a lot of Arabs, because I didn't have to, Ali and all of them, I didn't have to be worrying about inappropriate activity. And so it was a safe place. And that's why I was in the Asian churches, because it was a safe place. So I found all these safe places. Every time something negative happened to me, I would move towards a place that I thought was safe, that didn't allow these things because of how their stance was. So I aligned with them. And this is why I aligned with Jen. Her incredible stance against the LGBTQ drew me in. Truly, her phobia of the LGBTQ, and she didn't know what happened to me as molested as a child in that by a male, that her incredible stance against the LGBTQ drew me into her. And I felt I was in a very safe place, that I never had to worry about sexual exploitation. And that was part of why I loved her so. And I think part of why God, he knew she was against tattooing. She was against piercings. She was against feminine males. As she said, we had to get rid of the girly males in the Asian community. She was against all these things that I stood against. I didn't ask her, and she ended up naturally being a Republican. And I never asked her. I even never told her my political stance. She never asked how I voted, but it came out because when I was doing things with the Chicago Young Republicans, not the Chicago Young Professionals, which can integrate with the Chicago Young Republicans. But again, these are things that I incredibly loved her for. Truly, it was so easy to be with her because she respected the environment. She respected things. She didn't overuse. She wasn't a pig about anything. And so it was easy. And she watched to make sure she didn't overdo things. Being too how do you say, yes, anal retentive, being too zealot. So she made sure she balanced. So she was very much, we talked about self-reflection and everything, and it went. She used to pray to know the difference, what she can control and what she can't. And God let me know the difference so I can walk my walk the best I can do it. And so I tried to protect myself, and you keep on taking down all my shields. And now you ruined June for me, because we already had the gay parade and everything, and then we had Boys Town, and it's freaking ridiculous. So, again, and there's no support group. There's all these support groups for the LGBTQ, but there's no support groups for heterosexuals. That if they feel, they can call, 888. If you're feeling like you're moving towards the LGBTQ, isn't it good to have a heterosexual support group? And a safe line you can call, and they can help you through this, and a church can set this up? Because they say you can't do deconversion. Well, then you're allowed to do what they do, aren't you? Aren't you allowed to advocate for, as I told my friend John Zeef, I wanted to have a counter parade and have a heterosexual parade after the LGBTQ, or before the LGBTQ parade, I wanted a heterosexual parade. This is what I told John Zeef, and he was with me. He agreed. He had a baby, and he didn't want his daughter to grow up that way. So he thought it was a good idea. And he lived right on top of Boys Town. And so he agreed with me that we should do this counter parade. They say pro this. Well, you can do a parade that's pro heterosexual. And some reason we do nothing to say that heterosexuality is good, and they do everything. Even the name gay means happy, and they hijack that. Then they have the rainbow, which they have the lesbians, and L, G, the gays, B, the bisexuals, Q, the queers, and T, LGBT, T, the transsexuals, and the queer. And they have this alignment. Well, we can do the heterosexuals of Christianity, Muslim, through religion. We can do it with race. Heterosexuals, white, black, Hispanic, Arab. Heterosexuals, ethnic, Serbian, Croatian, truly American, Chinese, Japanese coalition. So why is it only for them? And we can't have a coalition that stands against. Why can't we get a coalition that supports these values of the Bible, that Abrahamic religions, it goes across? And again, I don't get it. And in the Bible, you have King David. He had multiple, but never the females interacted with each other. He interacted with even, what's his name? Oh, the Mongol. It was interaction with different females. And this goes for King David and Abraham. They didn't interact together. And Hagar and Sarah actually didn't like each other that much. And he interacted with them, Abraham, separately. So he spent unique time with each of them, independent of the other. So, again, I don't get it in the Bible. And this is what I thought out. If I had multiple, I would interact with them. They would each get my own divided time. I would uniquely interact with each of them, not as a group, but individually. And so, again, and then I saw something about a Mormon, and he had 2 wives, and this was in Utah, and he interacted with them separately. Like, if you have 2 wives, you sleep in the middle, one sleeps on the right side, one sleeps on the left side, and that's just for sleeping. But for sexual, and he talked about it, grab the 2020 piece, but he talked about it, how they take responsibility for each other's kids, and they do this sharing, and they worked out all this dynamics. So again, where is the coalition of heterosexuals going against the LGBTQ? And fuck any male that's a sellout. Again, these are weak individuals who want to take you down, and they don't care. And so they're pieces of garbage. What do you think I did in the locker room? I wore my towel. When I put on my underwear, I would put it on under my towel. Only if I couldn't do it because there was some reason, I would take it off and face away with my number 1 and put on my underwear. But most of the time, I did it under my towel. And then once I pulled up my underwear, then I took off my towel. The funny thing is, bellies, and I admired this black bald guy who was heavier, he came up with a solution. He tied a knot in the towels, these smaller towels, he tied together. He tied them together in a knot, and then he wrapped it around him so they fit perfectly. So he never walked around from the shower to the shower. He had a towel that fit around him. He overcame the smaller towel. Now he needed 2 towels or 3 towels. I think it was just 2, but he overcame it. And then the other black people put the little toilet paper in between the seams when they were in the bathroom, so you couldn't see them going, and they weren't doing anything disgusting, but they didn't want any guy peering through and seeing them, as they went to the bathroom. And these were the ones at Belly's, River City, and there was black personal trainers, a male and female, and I got along with them. I didn't use them, but I interacted, and all the other black people that I interacted with at Belly's at River City were super nice to me. And they were big time anti-LGBTQ. And they were big time. In the sauna, they would put down their towel. I went into the sauna with them, and no one went naked. They always went in with a towel and had the towel and sat on the towel. So there was no naked ass in the sauna. And these are black guys. So again, they had the towel on, and they would sit down in the towel in the steam room and that, which was very hot. But again, they tried to do things ultra appropriate in Venezuela. So I was very proud of those black people. And I was proud of going and exercising in the morning. I met Rob Dang, who was an Indian. And then who did I meet? An Indian guy named Kumar. And he might have been Pakistani or Indian, I forget. Kumar. and they work with a lot of doctors in medical school, Indian doctors, and they did their taxes. And I was talking about working with residents with him, and then he hung out with an Asian girl. He was Indian, she was East Asian, and she was so sweet, the nicest girl. I wasn't physically attracted to her, but as a friend, she was awesome. The sweetest girl ever. And Chris, he was incredible at racquetball. And he was big and heavy, couldn't move well. And God rest his soul, I called up his brother, and his brother told me he died of a heart attack. But I used to play him racquetball, and I was in shape and could outmove him, but he was so precise with the ball. His kill shots were incredible. And I would run around exhausting myself, and Chris was just incredibly accurate. Unbelievably accurate, and he hardly had the move, and he crushed me in racquetball. And he was awesome to play with, and I was learning from him. And it's sad that he died. He was an awesome guy, and I went to their place in these buildings, and this is why I hate fucking health inspectors and building inspectors, because building inspectors are supposed to go with health inspectors into buildings. It's just not the zoning. And Chris put down all this powder around the walls, and I don't know if it added to it, but he put so much, I forget what it is, for cockroaches around. Him and his brother were clean, but the building had cockroach problems. And I always think Illini Towers and all these doctors that lived in there, and these residents that were at UIC, and they're living in this housing, and the university, I don't get it. So I have some serious problem with building inspectors, because they're supposed to go hand in hand with health inspectors. And they're supposed to take samples of the atmosphere. Yeah, the atmosphere in the building. To see if the ventilation systems, if it's leaching anything into the atmosphere, particles and that. Now they can use a hand scanner or anything, scanning the atmosphere, a spectrum scanner, to see if there's lead or anything else in the atmosphere. But they need to go with a health inspector into the building. And that means commercial and residential, they need to team up, and they do the inspections simultaneously. So again, they need to work together. And then private business gets their stuff. It's not like when you're buying it, you need the building reports, but the person who's doing the home inspection has to even do a more thorough job than the building inspector. And this is where those home inspectors should sell the data to the government. So all those home inspections and that should sell the government the data back, so they can see what violations and things that were missed in the building inspections. Basically working together to perfect each other, because home inspectors should look at the building or house reports if it was ever inspected, and look at the permits and everything, and then compare their notes. And if the work was done truly, when they go through, it's not up to code, because they're supposed to, when they do the inspection, looking at the piping, the wiring and that, and say, okay, the code has changed and you're grandfathered in with the wiring. But again, you need an appropriate insurance, because all this goes into the insurance. Because the insurance should demand that you have a property inspection before you buy. And this prevents the bank from getting scammed. So the bank and insurance company can demand it that you have an independent inspection. It protects the mortgage. My friend Greg, who builds high-end homes, he bought from a lawyer who was a builder, and in the downturn he cut corners, and then when there was a heavy rain in the backyard, because he didn't do flashing in that, it poured into his basement. And I helped Greg talking about going to the bar association and that, because he wanted to get the guy disbarred. And I said, there's the realtor board and the bar association, and you can substantiate your claims. And he's a high-end builder. He builds, well, the last time I interact with him, he was building a $24 million home in Chicago, which is a pretty high-price home. And, you know, he pays a lot on property tax for that $24 million home in Chicago. He built it willingly, knowing he's going to have to pay for insurance and property tax and everything on it. $24 million home. But again, Greg, who built it, got scammed because he couldn't see behind the walls in that. So we need this public-private partnership. It's supposed to fill in the gaps. It's supposed to work seamlessly. That's what insurance companies fill in the gaps where law enforcement doesn't. So it's supposed to be a coalition crushing the fucking evil people. And that's where I believe now it's mandatory on all insurance companies that you have to use the app. It's no longer, because it creates too much variables, you must use the app in Progressive and that. And all insurance companies do it, and you have no choice. And if you don't do it, your insurance is terminated immediately, and the insurance company picks up the phone, 911, my client, I terminated his insurance policy. He has no insurance to drive. Self-reporting. So if they lapse, they call and right away, you call the police. Fuck them. So if I ran an insurance agency, you cancel my policy, you better have another policy replacing it. And if not, I'm reporting you to the police immediately. They're protect, because all these people get in accidents like Costa and that, and I've been hit with uninsured people. Fuck them. So, as an insurance agent, I'm a field underwriter, and when my clients do something wrong, I need to report it. And they don't understand. It protects people from scamming. And this is what Merrill Lynch and that don't understand. The people who don't go with you and then want to take your financial plan like they did. Here's what happened to me at Financial Network. And this is one of the owners of my broker-dealer from Financial Network, which was part of ING. I worked for in a foreign insurance company like I did at John Hancock, who was owned by Manulife. I worked before by ING, and I forget what European company owns ING. But again, I worked for a foreign company. And he went in and presented his plan to somebody, and then the guy said, I gotta go to the bathroom, and it had all the recommended, mutual funds, asset allocation. He said I had to go to the bathroom, and he took the plan with him, and he had a copier and copied the plan. That's why I put on my plans confidential, for read only. You can't use it, and I put on this thing that it's read only. Until you implement with me, you can't use anything in my plan. It's proprietary. It's my intellectual property. So I used the Microsoft thing to start printing that on my information. And I did that with my emails for small group too. That this information is intended for these people. I put a disclaimer on my personal emails. I wasn't to do it on Facebook. Truly, you need to protect your information with disclosures. And I don't know why Facebook doesn't do this. You accept them as friends, but still, you say this information is for any use other than this read-only, meaning you can look at the picture and everything, but any transmission or copying of this without express written permission is illegal. You put that on your social media posts, on your fan-only pages and that. So they don't do that with Peacock and everything. And at the beginning, you put the disclosure, and you say this can't be that whole thing they do in movies. They need to do with TV shows and that. They just put the disclosure on. It's a brief second. And this way, they can't argue ignorance. They always argue, I didn't know. You didn't tell me. Ask any of my friends from small group my disclosure. And I also put it on my, Gmail and that when I did outside business activity. My disclosure said, this is for health insurance and insurance purposes only. For this health insurance, group health, and any others, please contact me at Platinum Wealth Solutions. Any security or any related insurance issues like life insurance or anything that is not a group product. And I put the disclosure. So ask Nick, did anyone do that? Did Sheila? Did anyone? I did it. I didn't try to fuck him in any way, shape, or form. And then he fires me. And I was the only one protecting him. Truly protecting him. Brian, none of them were doing it. But I was the only one. And I got along perfectly with his sons, not his daughter. But they were building up from grassroots like he did. He gave his daughter and put her as a boss, and no one respected her. But they respected his sons because they were doing it from the bottom up. They went and got their licenses. They were building their book of business and learning. And instead of being their boss with Mike and all the other top producers, they were listening to the top producers. And the top producers were mentoring his two sons. They fucking hated Elizabeth. All of them. I hung out with them. Every single one of them didn't respect her and fucking hated her. They liked Nick. And that's the only reason they stood. And every time there was a problem, Nick would have to fly into Texas and basically save them from quitting. Because at certain points, all of them got fed up with Elizabeth. You don't know shit. You've never done this. You never built your book of business. You haven't gone through what I've gone through. And then you're telling me. It's like my friend Mike. Elizabeth was trying to tell him how the Bible is. And he grew up in the Bible. And he listened to me. But I told him it's an opportunity with her. And get her perspective. And then work with her, basically be subtle and gentle and give her guidance, because at least she's reading the Bible. And so I said, don't turn her off by looking down upon her. You got an opportunity to bring her to the Lord And so I said, and I worked with Mike to reformat how he interacted with her. So instead of being negative, he just took her comments that were incorrect and basically tried to figure out how he could re-guide her. And I told him, you got to be innovative and help guide her so she ends up in the right place. Because yes, you got to turn the other cheek and take the high road. Sometimes you got to take the high road. And so I instructed him to take the high road, and he said that's fine. And he told me that he was going in, and now he's taking the high road and listening to her and doing the studies with her, and then trying to figure out how he can guide her when she misunderstands passages and that. But it was great. But the whole point is, his two sons were doing it, and you can't give people shit. Because I watched that with my nephew Larry at Wells Brothers. No one respected him. He graduated college in creative writing, and he should have been in the marketing side of the business, and he made him vice president. He didn't work in the tooling. He never worked in shipping. I worked in the shop. I listened to Tony and all of them from since I've been a kid. And I went to vendors and did all kinds of things. And then he made him vice president. He just gave it to him. And no one respected him. He didn't have any of the tools. He didn't grow up in the industry. He went out, and his father, and I told you, did a disadvantage like Michael Jordan. He could have brought his sons with and took them to basketball practice and that, and exposed them and played one-on-one with them. Truly spent some time playing basketball with them and helping mentor them. I don't know. He has a new child from his second wife. She's a white girl. Hopefully he's mentoring him correctly. It's his choice. If he doesn't want to go into basketball, that's fine. He could go into coaching. He can do other things, but he learns the competitive drive, the work ethic, and that's very fungible. So I hope he's doing a better job with his third child, I think. So again, that's why they didn't end up, and he didn't mentor them, and he could have mentored them. Like my brother-in-law failed to mentor his kids and bring them in, reading the plans, doing the sales calls and everything. This is what we told Raul, to go out there and work for his cousin who owned a hedge fund in New York, and told them to go work for him for free. You have money, and you can just be his key grip like they do in the movies. And this is how you learn in the movies. Yeah, you're the errand boy. You get the dry cleaning, you get everything else, but also you get to sit in on the meetings and see how everything works. So you get to see all the nuts and bolts and how they plan out everything, being the key grip. So we told Raul, me and Pete, to go work for him for free, because he doesn't need you, and you want the expertise, and you got to pay by being the errand, by being his bitch. But anyways, I'm letting this video go.